You're listening to this podcast, so I know you've got a curious mind. Here's a helpful fact you may not know yet. Drivers who switch and save with Progressive save over $900 on average. Pop over to Progressive.com, answer some questions, and you'll get a quick quote with discounts that are easy to come by. In fact, 99% of their auto customers earn at least one discount. Visit Progressive.com and see if you can enjoy a little cash back. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. National average 12-month savings of $946 by new customers surveyed who saved with Progressive between June 2024 and May 2025. Potential savings will vary.
Most people don't realize how much of their personal information is being bought and sold every day. Data brokers are making billions pulling details about you from public records and the internet, then packaging and selling it, usually without your consent. That's how your information lands in the hands of scammers, spammers, even stalkers. That's where Aura comes in. Aura actively removes your data from broker sites and keeps it off. They also instantly alert you if your information shows up in a breach or on the dark web. But Aura goes beyond data protection. With one app, you get a VPN, antivirus, password manager, spam call protection, dark web monitoring, and even up to $5 million in identity theft insurance. All backed by 24/7 US-based fraud support. Other companies might just sell credit monitoring or just a VPN. Aura gives you all of that together at the same price competitors charge for just one service. Start your free trial today at aura.com/prevent. Protect yourself now at aura.com/prevent.
Every team, every topic, everywhere. This is Believe.
Welcome to the Odds Breakers, number one place for shared, sharp betting information.
Welcome back to podcast 90 of 2025. I'm your host, Kiev O'Neill. You can follow me on Twitter at OBKiev. Follow us at the Odds Breakers. Follow us on social media /the Odds Breakers. This episode is being brought to you by FanDuel Sports, a proud partner with the NFL. If you like to support the Odds Breakers and benefit from our premium plays, please visit theoddsbreakers.com, click shop, and become a member. Pick any. For winning cappers, get the premium plays before the line moves. You can also support us on patreon.com. If nothing else, please visit the Odds Breakers to become a free picks and Telegram subscriber. College football week 11, my friends, and we have a wonderful guest, Mr. Matt Youmans from VSiN Live. And Matt is excited to come on and talk about this massive weekend of college football and a little bit more. You have to remember college basketball is starting as well, and so we have to pick Matt's brain a little bit in that subject. So went 6-4 in the podcast plays last week, which brings us to a I would say a meh type record. It is 95, 88, and 2. And we start January 1st through college basketball, pause through the summer, and then go back into mostly, football, a little bit more college basketball popping up too. Obviously, 2026 starts college basketball season for us, and then our podcast will be more focused on college basketball right after New Year's there. But for now, mostly college and NFL football. And before Matt comes on, we always talk about college football ATS. Who's cashing those tickets? Who are we fading, right? Or who has the market been fading? So let's bring up those numbers right now. And we still have the number one team in the nation as also the number one closing number ATS team in Ohio State, 7-0-1. This team doesn't fumble. They don't target. This team is the crusher when it comes to fading the Ohio State Buckeyes. It just has not worked all season long. 8-1, Mississippi State, Memphis, and Texas Tech hanging out. And then you have 7-1 San Diego State. They have a big game this weekend. Pitt, Utah, North Texas, Western Kentucky, all 7-2. So there you have it. Those are your best covering teams. Your best fades have been Georgia State, 1-7, Penn State, Sam Houston, all 1-7, Charlotte, 1-5-2. And then you have some 2-7s, Monroe, Oklahoma State, UMass, Virginia Tech, Baylor, Stanford, all 2-7 against the spread. Let's look at the totals then. We have some overs teams. Temple, Arkansas, and Tennessee, all 7 overs and 2 unders. Then you have Sam Houston, Texas A&M, Air Force, Duke, 6-2. Marshall, Penn State, 6-2. Navy, UTSA, Georgia Southern, all 6-2 against the spread. And then Pitt is 6-2-1. Those are your overs teams and your unders teams. Missouri State sitting at the bottom at 1-7. North Carolina 1-6-1. Auburn, Oklahoma, Arkansas State, Arizona State, Wyoming, Purdue, SMU, all 2-7 to the under. So it looks like the unders have been crushing for those teams themselves. And Auburn, massive negative 10.4 points to the under, I might add. So they have been a massive fade team coming on in. Well, we have a lot to talk about with Matt Youmans. So without further ado, let's bring on our wonderful guest and get through this slate of college football week 11. Now, I'm very excited to welcome back a college football expert as well as the editor and host of the Vegas Sports and Information Network, Mr. Matt Youmans from vsin.com. You can follow Matt on Twitter at MattYoumans247. Matt, just like that, it's November, 2/3 through the regular season of college football. How's your season going, sir?
Pretty good, not great. I would say the college part of it's going pretty well. NFL's been very inconsistent. I'm typically consistent in the NFL, but I do play a lot of dogs, and dogs have had kind of a rough ride on a few weeks recently. In fact, I'll just give you an example. I had 3 weeks previous to last week. I went 5-0, 4-1, and then 0-5. So it kind of gives you an idea how the season's going.
Yeah.
You go 5-0 and you get optimistic. You think, all right, I'm about to get hot. And then 2 weeks later, you go 0-5 when the only dogs that cash are the Jets and what was the other one? Jets and the Dolphins. Yeah. And I didn't have either one of those.
Yeah.
So I went 0-5 that week. I don't always play 5 dogs, but that week I did, and played the wrong ones. Anyway, still alive in Circus Survivor, doing okay in the contest, but it's got a few entries left in Survivor, but you never feel comfortable, man. I'm telling you, all you have to do is watch the Packers lose to the Panthers last week, and you know how tricky this Survivor contest could be.
Very tricky, and when you finally found out how bad that wind was, the pick deadline was passed. And it would have made me go to the under in that. You saw the beach ball go flying into the field there. And, I'm out. I went out 2 weeks ago with Atlanta. I'm mad at myself because I had Buffalo left, and I could have played them against a backup Andy Dalton. And I'm at my son's baseball tournament, and I'm like, well, there's no way they're losing to the Dolphins here. And I know Raheem Morris is bad. But what I didn't really think of through is Kirk Cousins probably didn't even practice with the ones that week. It was probably, still Penix practicing with the ones, but then he doesn't go because that's something Raheem Morris would do. But that's what it looked like because Kirk Cousins was throwing the ball to where receivers weren't even cutting at, and I've ran enough about that. But you're right. You're never feeling completely comfortable. But at that point, I was past 75% to 80% of all entries were out, and I only came in with one. And it's tough. But the tougher thing for me this week is I didn't have the Packers left. I would have had to play the Rams, so I would have been sitting pretty with you, Matt, with a $10,000 value on each entry. But are you someone that wants to sell a little bit of that later, or are you kind of that guy that's going to be, let's take it all the way to the end?
Not going to sell anything. You get in this contest to win it, not in there. And, if you don't have the money to, let's say if you're looking to sell your entry late in the season, you probably really didn't have much money, much of a bankroll to spend on contest entries in the first place. I mean, at one point, I look at it this way. You did a great job getting as far as you did with one Survivor entry. I think if you're going to win this contest, you got to have multiple entries. You got to have at least 3, if not 5 or more, probably team up with somebody and do what you can to get as many entries as possible. It's all about cashing at the end, but it's also about the prestige of winning the contest. And in order to cash at the end and win the contest, I think you've got to have multiple bullets. I know of a guy who had one entry and he ran all the way to the end, and he was one of the co-champs. But the same guy had 10 entries the next year, and he was out by week 2.
That big guy. Yeah.
Chris Piper.
Yes.
Chris Piper was a guy. And it's always a story I like to tell people. But again, that's a Cinderella story when you have one entry and you get all the way through. And there were fewer entries in Survivor then than there are now. Don't forget, that's a big difference from 2020 to 2025 because you're talking, 18,000 plus entries in Survivor now. So anyway, all I'll say about this, I'm not scolding you at all, but it's got to be hard to sleep at night when you pick the Falcons and you put your whole Survivor existence on that. I hate that team. I hate the coach, hate the quarterback. I don't care if it's Cousins or Penix. I hate that team. I will not put my Survivor existence riding on the Atlanta Falcons. I know sometimes you have to. You get deeper in this contest, you don't have a lot of choices. Like, the Falcons ought to be able to beat the Dolphins, right? I hate the Falcons. I do not want to use that team on any week.
I hate them too, but I thought they were one of the 20 I had to use, being that they're supposed to be mediocre. But you're right. I got greedy, wanted the Bills for this week or another week, and that's how it was. And I was somewhat set up, but here's where I wasn't set up: Christmas week. Now you could start hedging at Christmas at least, but I didn't have the Kansas City. I didn't have Denver because I wanted nothing to do with that game, and I can't stand Kansas City, and I don't want to lose either way of that game. And I didn't have the Lions. And maybe the Vikings would beat at home against the Lions again. I don't know. That's the only one I had left really for Christmas week, but I had a nice Baltimore and Philly left for Thanksgiving week, which I think that both of those are really hot bullets right now. If you still have those left now, if you don't have anybody left, almost. That's when you sell your ticket and see if the guy's dumb enough not to see who you used. That's I guess the only time you would sell your ticket if you don't have those bolts in the chamber. But I agree with you that if you're planning on selling it, what are you doing? There's probably other ways to make money. You're trying to win the big prize here at the end of the day. So don't want to.
I still got the Eagles left for Thanksgiving. I saved them, and my whole strategy was if we get to Thanksgiving with the Eagles and get through that week, I'm going to feel like I'm in pretty good shape. I think the field's really going to be thin by the time we get to the end of that Thanksgiving weekend, but we'll see. I just got to survive this week first. You can never take anything for granted, man.
And what's up to Andrew? Sorry you went out with the pack last week. Many other people have as well, especially when in other survivors. So World Series, you did okay there. I know you sent me a message. You were kind of on both sides in a way.
Most people don't realize how much of their personal information is being bought and sold every day. Data brokers are making billions pulling details about you from public records and the internet, then packaging and selling it, usually without your consent. That's how your information lands in the hands of scammers, spammers, even stalkers. That's where Aura comes in. Aura actively removes your data from broker sites and keeps it off. They also instantly alert you if your information shows up in a breach or on the dark web. But Aura goes beyond data protection. With one app, you get a VPN, antivirus, password manager, spam call protection, dark web monitoring, and even up to $5 million in identity theft insurance. All backed by 24/7 US-based fraud support. Other companies might just sell credit monitoring or just a VPN. Aura gives you all of that together at the same price competitors charge for just one service. Start your free trial today at aura.com/prevent. Protect yourself now at aura.com/prevent.
Oh, yeah. I talked about this on Follow the Money show with Mitch and Paul before the World Series, is that I really thought the Blue Jays had a great shot to win it. And more than a puncher's chance, because I really liked their lineup, and I thought the Dodgers starting rotation was due for some regression after dominating in the NLDS. Also, let's be honest, the job of a successful sports bettor is to see through the fan and media hype and find value in numbers. And I just thought the Dodgers were being overhyped. A lot of people, I watch the Dodgers almost every night. We get them on DirecTV here in Vegas, and the replays, are on that Dodgers channel 690 all night. I watch more Dodgers this year than any other team by far. I know how weak that bullpen is. I know how bad Dave Roberts is at handling the bullpen. Dodgers did a very smart thing in the playoffs by using all their starters out in the bullpen as well. So that helped patch up that hole that they had out there. But at the same time, I just felt like they were overhyped. And I'm also a Yankees fan. I've watched the Blue Jays beat the Yankees' ass the entire year. So I know they're legit. So anyway, I put Blue Jays, I bet them at plus 200 at Circa. I drive out to South Point that night, and they're plus 220 at South Point, so I bet it again. But I decided, you know what, I think this is going to be a deep series going 6 or 7. I'm just going to hedge my position a little bit. Dodgers were plus 350 to win in 6 and 5-1 odds to win in 7. I didn't want the 350. I said, let's go 7. I'll be in a great spot. So I took Dodgers at 5-1 and 7.
Nice.
And I was able to sit back and enjoy Game 7 and turn a profit either way. What an epic Game 7 that was. I'm not saying that's the best World Series I've ever seen, because when I was a little kid, the first baseball I ever really remember watching is that Red Sox World Series in 1975. And I know ESPN ranked all the World Series. Somebody did a column on this over the summer, I think, and ranked that one number 1. 1986, I would say the Red Sox Mets. 2001 was a great World Series. 2016 for the Cubs. I mean, there's a bunch of others. I'm not going to say this is the best World Series. Actually, that 1975 World Series, I think 5 of the games were decided by 1 run, 5 of the 7.
Right.
But that might be the best Game 7 I've seen. I mean, it might be. I don't know. I don't want to be prisoner of the moment and get into hyperbole and all those things. But awesome. Just an awesome World Series.
Yeah, the Cubs extra innings won, and Game 7 in Cleveland was pretty awesome to me, being a Cubs fan. And so it's hard for me to say. I was just completely invested in it, even though I didn't have money on it. I enjoyed the hell out of it. It was fun. I had the Utah game on the side on my iPad, so I was making sure I was focusing on the World Series. I was at a friend's house, actually, and they had it on. But that was awesome to watch, and I do agree that was eye candy for anybody that enjoys sports. College basketball season started. I know you're a college basketball man. We love talking to you. January, February, obviously March Madness. But have you dabbled in any college basketball yet? And if so, do you have anything for our audience?
I've bet several futures. I've been betting futures in college hoops going back to, let's say, April or May. And one of the first ones I bet, I was looking through some of the tickets. I like to bet futures at the window instead of on the app, because I hate it when you have a future on your app and every time you log in, you got to see it on there.
Yeah.
And you log into these apps every day, so I don't want to see that bet every day for 9 months or 10 months when I'm logging in. So I actually bet most times I bet the futures on tickets, and I keep them in a box in my office. Anyway, the first one I bet was Kentucky, and it was I think the very end of April. I got Kentucky, I think, at 20-1, 18 or 20-1, something like that. But I'll tell you 3 teams I really like right now. One is Kentucky, one is Michigan. I got Michigan, I think, at 22-1. Going back some point in May or June. Kentucky, Michigan, and St. John's was one of the first ones I bet as well. I like those 3 a lot. Kentucky, Michigan, and St. John's. I got all in that 20-1 neighborhood. You can still find very similar numbers to that out there in the market now. Maybe not quite as good, but very close. Those 3 teams are dangerous and well coached. You know, when you look at teams that you want to bet on in terms of futures, you don't want to bet on teams like the Atlanta Falcons that are coached by Raheem Morris. You want to bet on teams that are really well coached. Guys who are, Rick Pitino at St. John's, Dusty May at Michigan, Mark Pope at Kentucky, even Dan Hurley at UConn. I've got a UConn ticket as well. But when it comes to college hoops, I think coaches are the most important. You got to bet on really good coaches, and those teams are stacked with talent. They got the coaching. So I'll give you one team that's kind of a Big Ten guy like me. I'll give you a team that's a real sleeper in the Big Ten. A lot of people are going to say Washington, and I do like Washington, but watch out for Iowa. Ben McCollum, the new coach from Drake, is outstanding. Last year, actually, Drake won a game in an NCAA tournament. Bennett Sturtz, who's a point guard, one of the best point guards in the country, came with McCollum from Drake. Drake had the slowest tempo offense in all of college basketball last season. I watched the Hawkeyes opener last week, and they put up 101 points on Robert Morris. Bennett Sturtz, I think, had 19 and 6, and he's got some talent around him. I think that's going to be a sleeper team to watch in the Big Ten.
Okay, Iowa. Well, there you go. And, you do have better numbers. Kentucky 13-1, Michigan 14-1, St. John's 16-1 on DraftKings. I guess the good and bad thing about DraftKings, they don't show your bets. And sometimes when you're trying to find out what the hell cashed or what didn't, you have to go to the app itself because the computer screen doesn't have it so you can adjust it by when it was paid. It's just the way they like to do things and confuse you.
Well, you know what? Two things I'll say about that. One is that we can't use DraftKings in Nevada. So when I bet on DraftKings, I might have to have somebody else like you put in the bet for me, somebody who's in a different state. And the other thing is you got to shop around on futures. I even got burned on this recently. I was over at the Circus book, where I am basically every night. And I like Ole Miss, Chris Beard. And I thought, I got to bet a real bomb here. And I bet Chris Beard, when he was at Texas Tech, was at 2019. I had him at 200-1. They got to the national championship game. Got screwed by the officials and lost to Virginia.
I remember that imaginary foul in overtime.
Oh, yeah. There were two ridiculous calls when against Tech.
Horrible.
Yeah. Anyway, I read recently that Chris Beard and Ole Miss beat Houston by 15 points in a exhibition that was played in New Orleans. And Houston's, number 1 or number 2 in the country. You don't want to read too much into exhibitions, but that does tell you something. That tells you when you can beat the number 1 or number 2 team by 15 points, you got some talent, you got coaching. So I was at Circa, it was 95-1 on Ole Miss. And I went over to the Westgate after work that night. Westgate had 200-1 on Ole Miss. So I took the 200-1. But that's just, you got to shop around a little bit. I also took 300-1 someplace on Notre Dame because I love the backcourt and the coach. And they actually brought in a guy from Northern Arizona. I think Carson Tout. Do you know him? You're down in Arizona.
I don't go to too many NAU Lumberjack games. It is my wife's alma mater. But
Is that right? Yeah.
But it is that's
ask your wife. Ask your wife what she can tell you about Carson Tout. He was probably not much. He was the nation's number 1 rebounder last year, and he transferred to Notre Dame. Anyway, I like that team, and I grabbed 300-1. I was at a different book a couple days later, and I saw 500-1 on Notre Dame. Okay. So it's just sometimes you get the best number, sometimes you don't. But bottom line is, you really got to shop around and look at multiple books on futures. Those numbers you just talked about on those 3 teams of DraftKings, I guarantee you could get better numbers in the market right now than that.
Yeah, you got to definitely shop, and sometimes you're in a position where you have a hunch, and then the team starts winning. You have to wait for them to lose to sometimes bet them again. Right. But look, just wait till if you like Kentucky, which I kind of do. I guess wait till they play some bigger teams, and then maybe they'll drop one or so. I have to look at their schedule, but Kentucky's usually a team that has a pretty rough regular season schedule, non-conference, I should say, almost. Right? I think I almost call this preseason, but they got to play Louisville, and Louisville's got a new coach. They got Michigan State and Gonzaga, so maybe they drop one of those, and you can get back to 20-1 here. But when it's this early, I need at least 20-1, unless I'm very, very sure about something.
Right. Right.
So let's get into college football, right? We have a lot to talk about because, well, first, I like to talk about value, and buy low, sell high is a segment that we do to, see if there's somebody we might be fading coming up here. It doesn't have to be this week. Maybe you're something kind of eyeing up. Why don't we go with buy low and sell high? You go first.
Okay. If we had done this show a couple weeks ago, I would have told you to sell high on Miami. Or a few weeks ago, I was on Louisville against as a 2-touchdown dog at Miami. I've always felt like the Hurricanes are a bit of a fraud. I got a buddy who loves to bet futures. He bets way too many futures. And he was fired up about Miami after Hurricanes blew out South Florida. Best team in the country. I got to get some futures on Miami. I said, look, don't bet any futures on Miami. I said, Cristobal and Carson Beck are going to find a way to F this up, okay? And he didn't trust me, and he went out and fired on the Hurricanes. And see what happens. I don't even think they're going to make the playoffs now. But anyway, that after I lost to SMU over the weekend, I'm not always right, but I did not want any part of that Miami team. That was a team I felt like was really overhyped because of the coach and the quarterback. I'm going to sell high, somewhat high at this point on Virginia. I think most people, if you bet college football, this team's a bit of a fraud. Virginia's best win was at Louisville. In that game, Jeff Brom, who's much better as a dog than he is as a favorite. Louisville gave up a fumble return for a touchdown and a pick six. And Virginia won that game in overtime 30-27. Virginia's won 3 games in overtime against Florida State, Louisville, and North Carolina. Virginia beat Washington State by 2 and then needed a pick six to cover in the final minute at Cal last weekend. I think this Virginia team's a bit of a fraud, and I guess I would qualify as my sell high at this point. That's a team I'm definitely looking to fade. I don't know how high Virginia is right now. Like I said, I think most college football bettors know this team is not as good as its record, which is what, 8-1 right now?
Yeah, and the one loss doesn't count as an ACC loss against NC State because it was preseason type situation. So they're undefeated in the ACC with the red carpet to the ACC championship game. But what? They're 6.5-point favorites against Wake Forest. I'm still thinking about betting Wake Forest, but the market kind of sniffed that out too a little bit. But I still think it should be a lower spread. So maybe you're right here, and they're still a sell high team.
Well, yeah, I don't know if I'm going to play this. Probably not going to play this Wake game. I just say this too: stick to your strengths as a handicapper. I know a lot of times people say you bet numbers, not teams. I disagree with that. I think you bet a combination of numbers and teams. If you don't know anything about the teams, if you know nothing about the teams, how do you know if the number's good? And then unless you're a guy who just sits there and looks at the screen all day and just bets numbers, but most people don't do that. So, combination of betting numbers and teams, and I'm not that great at handicapping the ACC on a weekly basis. In fact, I hate the ACC. Football, basketball, that's one of my weakest areas. I would say, so stick to your strengths, and the strengths for me are more like the Big 10, Big 12, Mountain West. Used to be the Pac-12, even though it does not exist anymore, SEC. But the ACC's never been a hot spot for me, so probably not going to play that game this week, even though I did play North Carolina last Friday night, and I'm a little bit hesitant to say this, but you can see some improvement in the Tar Heels recently. And if you're going to tell me to buy low, that's a team I would have talked about a couple weeks ago before they went out to Cal and lost that game and fumbled at the half-yard line. That's what cost them the game there. But I'll give you a buy low team. Most people hate this team because they don't have a sexy offense and they win ugly, but let's go with the Iowa Hawkeyes again. I just mentioned Iowa basketball. How about buy low on Iowa football? And let's do it before the Oregon game. I'm trying to find Kiev, I'm looking right now. I don't know if there's a 7 out there on the screen. I know there was briefly a 7 on this Oregon-Iowa game. I see 6.5 at the Westgate.
Let me look at my screen here.
6.5 at DraftKings. I don't see a 7 out there. I'm hoping to get a 7 on Iowa before the weekend. If you go back to September 27th, the Hawkeyes had Indiana on the ropes, and they let the Hoosiers off the hook. That was a classic Kirk Ferentz game where all Iowa needed was one more first down. They had 2nd and 4. And if you get one more first down, you're in field goal range. You can run the clock down, kick a field goal, win the game. And you could see Kurt Signetti sweating on the other sideline. He was sweating. He knew that they were up against it. What did Iowa do on 2nd and 3rd down? Ran the ball right up the middle for no gain, and then attempted a field goal and missed it. And then Indiana gets the winning score and wins that 20-15. But this Iowa team's legit. I know most people don't like it because, like I said, it's not a sexy offense or anything like that. You got Mark Gronowski at quarterback, and in the Penn State game a couple weeks ago, he passed for 68 yards, right? But he also ran for 130. Right. So I think if you look at the Oregon schedule to this point, the Penn State win, yeah, I give them credit for that. I say it's not as impressive now as it was then, but it's still a pretty good win going into Happy Valley when Drew Aller was healthy and Penn State still had national championship aspirations. That was a really good win. Otherwise, the Ducks got bullied. They got pushed around at home by Indiana. I think they've had a lot of soft spots on the schedule. And when you go to Iowa, this is just a different style of football. They get you in the pig pen, and they're going to roll around in the mud and make it ugly. And I think this Iowa team's going to be dangerous this week. So if you buy on Iowa now, I think that's probably the right time to do it. But I would like to get 7. That's not going to be a play for me today because 6.5 is the best number in the market.
So my sell high team is San Diego State.
Okay.
They're running through the bad teams in the Mountain West. And I like what Sean Lewis is doing over there. Don't get me wrong. It's fantastic. But, dude, you look at the offenses they faced, the worst in the league, and it's skewing their defensive EPA stats. We'll get to that game. I know you picked it. I have a feeling I know what your side you might be on. But, man, I just think that these stats are massively exaggerated for the Aztecs here. And I do like the Aztecs. They've won some money for me, but we'll get to that game coming up. So I'm going to sell high on San Diego State. I don't have a buy low in this case, but we agree a lot of times. I'm not sure if I agree with this game with you against Oregon and I took 5.5. All right. So I laid it with 5.5 with Oregon, but I just feel like you almost said it yourself with the coach there and Ferentz running right up the middle. I think that game was just Indiana's real first road game, and they got through it, and maybe they shouldn't have got through it. But every game, even Georgia should have lost maybe to Auburn. There's not every great team doesn't have any hiccups, and I feel like that might have been Indiana's hiccups. But when you look at the Ducks, they have just a massive net yards per play advantage at plus 3.31, and Iowa 1.14, and that is very solid. But I just look at the coaching difference here, and I really think that Kirk Ferentz is going to be outcoached against a pissed-off Danny Lanning that's not getting talked about now. Everyone's forgetting Oregon. Oregon is not where they were last week. I think this could be a scary situation where it wouldn't shock me if there is margin in double digits on this game when you have the Ducks coming in 14th in defensive success rate. I don't see how Iowa's going to score against this team. They're 108. See, here's the problem with Iowa: 118th in offensive passing success rate. If they get behind, they're not a good team coming from behind. They are a lot better at the lead. So, I mean, my handicap disagrees. I rarely disagree with you, man, but I like Oregon at -6, but I also need a 6. It's starting to creep back up to 7. So I think I think it will get 7. I think some indicators are saying that. And in that case, it's a stay off for me.
I don't blame you. I mean, as I said, Iowa's a tough sell. People don't like the Hawkeyes. They're ugly. I'm not a big fan either. But I got a feeling this is going to be a tougher game for the Ducks than a lot of people think. And I love Dan Lanning. I think he's a rising coaching star. And it's one of those contrasting styles matchups where Oregon's got speed all over the field and the Hawkeyes really don't. That's why they want to make it a mud wrestling match. But
correct.
I wouldn't shock me if Oregon rolls in there and wins. You asked me for a buy low, and that's all I could come up with. I at this point, I feel like most of the buy low and sell high teams have bypassed us at this point in the season. There's not too many secrets left, I don't think, at this point.
I didn't even have one. I didn't even have a buy low, so you're right.
Yeah.
It's tough to find a buy low. But, you're right. I think if they ugly the game up, absolutely, this is a live dog here. And I'm a dog better at heart. It's just one of those situations where I'm going to look at myself in the mirror. If Oregon, I could have got a 5.5 with Oregon against a kind of that meddling Big Ten team, in this situation. So I'm going to pay to see if I'm right or wrong. But that's just my thoughts on this one. But you're looking at another game here with Indiana. Indiana's just attractive either to bet on them or bet against them every week. But here they are laying over 2 touchdowns. It's 15.5, right? And I think that's kind of consensus. It's kind of in nowhere land between the 14 and the 17. And they're hosting a big name in Penn State who has been kind of disrespected, but they still have something to play for. They still can get to a bowl game. I don't know. I didn't bet this game. I've been staring at it. I'm waiting for the market to make a decision. But Matt, where are you at on this game?
Well, Penn State's actually the home dog here. So when was the last time Penn State was getting 15 and a half at home? I was going to have to call Andy Iskoe or Bruce Marshall or somebody who's got those point spread logs that go way back. I can't remember the last time Penn State was this big of a home dog.
I can't either.
We had to go back before Joe Paterno? I don't know. I know Paterno had a couple of lean years towards the end, but I don't remember Penn State being a dog like this. Anyway, that point aside, I feel like the point spreads are getting inflated on Indiana. And I'll tell you this for sure. This is the last time this season I'm going to look to bet against Indiana because I think this Hoosiers team can win the whole thing. And unfortunately, I'm not going to get the same value against Ohio State that I was talking about a month ago. I told Tim Murray, my co-host on VSiN Primetime, about a month ago, I said, look, if DraftKings or these books are going to put up a 10 on Ohio State against Indiana, I'm taking that 10 all day long because that was a look-ahead number at DraftKings. Now it's going to be down to like 3.5 or 4. You're not going to get much with the Hoosiers at this point. I think everybody realizes this team's legitimate. And Cignetti, to me, is almost like the new Nick Saban. He was on, for those who don't know, he was on Nick Saban's original staff at Alabama as a recruiting coordinator and assistant coach. And he reminds me a lot, the way he talks, the way he coaches, reminds me a lot of Saban. And the guy's cutthroat. The Hoosiers are blowing out all these teams. But it's a little bit different when you're going into Happy Valley as a 15-point favorite. We just talked about Hoosiers getting a scare in Iowa City. Penn State's still got, high talent level on that roster. And I think that Ethan Grunkemeyer, the quarterback, who has not been very good since he took over for Drew Aller, will probably have a chance to play his best game here because he's had a couple starts now. He's at home. He's going to be a little bit more comfortable. And you got Katron Allen and Nicholas Singleton in that backfield. You got a pretty good offensive line in front of you. And you're going to have 105,000 fans there at Penn State who are going to give this team a chance, I think, to rally as a home dog. Just a big number to cover, man. Yeah. If you put this at 10, I might not take it. But I saw the 15.5, I had to take Penn State. And I just don't think Indiana's going to roll out there and win by 30 or 40 every week. There's got to be one more speed bump out there in the Big Ten. I think this is it. Double check the screen right now. Looks like the 15.5s have disappeared. When I emailed you this morning, there was 15.5 at DraftKings. Now it's 14.5. There's still 15 at Circus. We'll still call it 15.
Okay.
But I'll take 15. There's 15 at Circa and the Westgate Superbook and Will Hill. So
Bet 365 is 15. There's still Bet 99. They're still hanging out there, and you're right. Circa and Caesars is that. So you're good to call it 15 in my book.
Nittany Lions have lost 5 in a row, but all 4 of those were down to the wire games, and the 5th one last week at Ohio State, they were down 17-14 at halftime, and right in the game, obviously lost control of the wheel in the second half. But I'll take 15 with Penn State. I'm not going to look to bet against Kirk Cignetti after this. I'm probably going to be on the Hoosiers, taking points, 3.5 or whatever I can get with Indiana in the Big Ten championship game.
Absolutely. My numbers do not come up to 15 on this. I think I have Penn State losing by 13 points here. And, they're lucky it's not a whiteout game. I think that would definitely even make me more attracted to that. So I'm with you. I think I might have a little something on Penn State, at least in the first half, kind of see if Indiana comes off a little groggy. If you remember last year, Indiana kind of slowed down after that Michigan second half. Michigan kind of came back, and then they just kind of, just chopped their way through until they finally played a terrible Purdue team. So that's interesting. Andrew Clark, Bill O'Brien was there, and I guess the next year they were 13.5 dogs to Ohio State. Well, the year Bill O'Brien was there, and I just pulled this up, they lost to Ohio State 64-10. So that was Bill O'Brien's probably a death blow that year back in 2013. So
that's a good point. Actually, Bill O'Brien did a pretty good job of stabilizing that program. I kind of forgot. I remember how chaotic it was at Penn State after the Jerry Sandusky fallout and the Paterno statue coming down and the whole program kind of falling apart there for a couple of years. So that's true.
Yeah, it was really bad then, and he kind of did stabilize it, but he didn't do good enough. And then they brought in James Franklin, of course. So the rest is history. I'm with you. There's still a lot of talent on this Penn State team, and they're going to take offense to it. They just played Ohio State tough last week. Ohio State got some bounces their way, let's say, but this is probably a great spot to get on a home dog like Penn State. So I'm with you on that one. Let's move into the next game. We have Kansas versus Arizona. I picked this one. Arizona's -4.5, total 56.5. This is an underrated game in the desert, in my opinion. There's a lot of people that saw the Wildcats blow the doors off the Buffaloes last weekend. And I'll admit, I was on the wrong side there, Matt. I thought that, Colorado would be embarrassed enough and, try to put up a little bit of fight. Well, the truth is that everyone says that they've completely given up, and maybe they have a little bit, but I also saw some fight, and the players just get schooled by the Arizona Wildcats and Fafita. I feel like this is kind of like the Cats from 2 or 3 years ago with T-Mac, kind of coming back a little bit. There's a lot of talent on this team, and the Jayhawks had some opportunities this year, but every time the Jayhawks stepped up in class, they lose by double digits every single time. Both offenses are pretty solid in this game, but the defense, I was really surprised to see their defense. The Cats ranked 21st in defensive success rate, 12th in defensive EPA. They have a strength of schedule that's with Kansas's. They only allow 4.37 yards per play, ranking 8th in the nation. They have a net 1.69 yards per play. Kansas only has 0.39. I think the Cats, after that bye, they're just getting better. I'm going to lay 4.5 with the Cats here at home against Kansas. I know that, I used to hate Brett Brennan, and I just feel like somehow he's and I was on Lance Leopold a lot, but this is a situation where I think this Cats team and Fafita is trying to get in the NFL. I'm laying it with the Cats, man. 4.5. I know this number came down, but this is where I kind of buy in.
Did you say Fafita is trying to get in the NFL or the CFL?
Well, it doesn't matter where he's trying to get and what's going to happen, but he's putting an effort out there, and I do appreciate that.
I think Noah Fafita is like a legit 5'8", and he's not Kyler Murray. I don't think he's getting to the NFL.
Well, he's not going to be a number 1 draft pick like Kyler Murray, that's for sure.
I know he's listed at 5'10", but I don't think he's that tall. I like him a lot as a college quarterback, but yeah,
I agree.
You know what? I don't disagree with that play. And you made a funny comment there because Brent Brennan for a while was a hot name, and everybody thought he was a rising star as a coach. Man, that guy makes some really dumbass game management, clock management decisions. Mm-hmm. I don't like Brennan like I used to.
It took me a while to get on the Cats too this year, and it was because of Brennan. But I just feel like the talent in this situation is overriding the coach. Unlike Miami, I was on SMU last week. I was on Louisville that week.
Good, nice job.
I hate going. I went against the coach, but I just feel like it's almost like he's been ignored. We'll see. Nebraska, UCLA. UCLA -1.5, total 43.5. This is yours. And Nebraska with the massive Raiola injury. As we all know, this spread kind of went from them being favorites of 4.5. If you look way ahead, they were favorites by more, like 6 or 7, all the way to UCLA -1.5 right now at home.
Let's see. I actually sent you an email this morning, and I switched UCLA out and put Missouri in. Did you get that email?
Oh, I did not get that email, being that I just walked in right before we started going. But we can move to Missouri's game. That
doesn't matter. Actually, it really doesn't matter. I like UCLA and Missouri, so I guess you get 4 plays for the price of 3, and I'll just talk about one of them.
There we go.
Because I do like Missouri +7 with that Matt Zollers, the quarterback, the freshman, who I thought looked pretty good against Vandy a couple weeks ago. Missouri off the bye as a 7-point home dog to Texas A&M, but UCLA is also off the bye after that blowout loss at Indiana. I think this is a pretty good scheduling spot here for the Bruins. And they're going up against a Nebraska team that lost Dylan Raiola, the quarterback, against USC. And if you watch that game, and I did because I had Nebraska +7, it was hold on and hope because I wasn't even sure the Cornhuskers were going to cover. It looked like they're going to win the game. Raiola goes out. The backup quarterback was so bad, I didn't think the Cornhuskers were going to hold on and cover the number. T.J. Lateef came in at quarterback. He was 5 for 7 for 7 yards. They could not get a first down. Everything is a screen pass because he can't throw the ball downfield. Now, Emmett Johnson is a stud workhorse running back for Nebraska, but hey, if you're the UCLA defensive coordinator, you're going to load up. You're going to have a loaded box against the run because you know T.J. Lateef can't beat you with the pass. So I think most things are pointing to UCLA here as a 1.5-point home favorite. So That'll be, how about we'll go half unit each there on Missouri +7, UCLA -1.5. Now I got a fourth play.
I'm dying to see the Missouri, that with a third string quarterback, and that's going to be such an interesting game. I thought I first looked and thought A&M myself, but you like the dog at 7, and I'm
mostly a dog player. I love home dogs in college football, and I think Texas A&M's another one of those teams played a bunch of high-profile, tough games, week after week, and I got to think they're going to have to either sweat this one out or get upset on the road here at Missouri. But hey, this Missouri defense is legit too. If you watched the Missouri-Vandy game, Missouri probably should have won that game in Nashville a couple weeks ago. And really, the Tigers outplayed the Commodores most of the way. A couple big plays went Vandy's way. A big call went Vandy's way. And they ended up winning that game. I'll say, was it 23? Yeah, 23. No, 17-10. 17-10 was that score. But this Missouri defense is legit. So, anyway, home dog week, Penn State, Missouri. We'll go short home favorite UCLA, and I got one more home dog for you coming up.
All right.
What's your next?
My next one is LSU versus Alabama. I wrote 10.5. It looks like it's mostly 10s. I think I wrote it yesterday. That's why. I'm probably going to have to call it a 10. I would rather have people wait to bet this because I want a 10.5. And ESPN bet's got the -120. It's starting to come back in a few of them. Hard Rock plus 10.5 -115. That's the best you're going to get. So I like LSU, and I'm betting the coach fired spot, and it doesn't work every time. But I just look at the talent discrepancy on these teams. They're not that much of a difference. And Nussmeier has been there. I don't know how healthy he is, but they're both coming off a bye. I think they've kind of cleaned themselves up a little bit, and Coach Brian Kelly and his fake accent's been kicked out of Baton Rouge, right? And I think that's an exhale for the team. I really believe that. I don't think they like Brian Kelly. I feel that Alabama's been fortunate, man. Lots of shenanigans in that Tennessee and South Carolina games. It's funny. You look at the strength of schedule. They're both top 6. One's 4 and one's 6 on Sagarin. And then the net yards per play, LSU's at 0.55. Alabama's only at 0.8. This is not that much of a difference to me. And, Alabama has not been all impressive to me. I think the coach fire bump's great. I'd rather have 10.5. I'll call it a 10 for this show. I'm taking LSU. I think this is the most exciting game of the weekend, and this team's going to give it their all now that Brian Kelly is gone, and they can pass the blame on him when they make a run at beating Alabama.
I can see it. That's been a really strong angle, by the way. The first game after a coach gets fired, coaching change. I was on Florida last week with that, and a lot to talk about with that game, but Florida was the right side almost the entire way. So, yeah, I don't disagree. And I do think the players probably hated Brian Kelly. Hate's a strong word, but it's probably true. Brian Kelly and his family are now gone, headed out of Baton Rouge, and I think that's going to be a good thing for LSU. I didn't play that game personally. I got a couple guys I know are really sharp with college football say Alabama big. They love Alabama. And I just told you I don't play big favorites. Very rarely do I play big favorites. I've played a few this year, but probably not going to play that game.
Yeah, I don't see how. I don't know what they're looking at because I'm looking at the stats even, and it's not screaming that 0.25 net yard per play difference here. The spread should be 6. It should not be 10.5 in my opinion. Obviously, everything's price dependent. If the spread's 5, I like Alabama. It's just not. It's not lining up with my numbers. I like LSU, but let's go to the west side here to the time zone change. Now I know that Hawaii is one of the other smart states that doesn't do daylight saving time. Down here, we wonder what the hell you guys are doing. Now I'm stuck in mountain time for about 4 months. But here we are, Hawaii +7 against San Diego State, total 50.5. I think you kind of know where I was getting at with my sell high team. What is your handicap on this game?
Yeah, you made some of the points that I was going to make talking about the San Diego State defense. Now, over the, last 3 games in Mountain West play, San Diego State's allowed a total of 17 points. And if you watch this team recently, you're like, wow, where'd this come from? Because Aztecs did not look very good, especially in that blowout loss at Washington State early in September. But since then, they beat Cal 34-0, beat Northern Illinois on the road 6-3, beat Colorado State, then went to Reno, beat Nevada 44-10, went to Fresno, won 23-0, and beat Wyoming 24-7. But you made the point, and I couldn't agree more. What do those teams have in common? Some of the worst teams in the Mountain West. And so you can't get blown away by the numbers sometimes. You got to look at who the competition is. And Jaden Denegal, the quarterback for San Diego State, he's mediocre. He can make a few plays, but he's not going to light it up. Lucky Sutton is the guy who's most important to that San Diego State offense. This kind of reminds me of the old Rocky Long era Aztecs teams that won with a really good defense, a great running back, and had a below-average quarterback or subpar quarterback. Lucky Sutton is not Marshall Faulk or Rashad Penny or somebody like that, but he's a pretty good back. Over the last 4 games, he's averaged 22 carries and 121 yards per game. Hawaii defense is suspect against the run, so I think that's where the Aztecs are going to have their success. But I want to see the San Diego State defense step up and stop Micah Alahado and the Hawaii offense. I've got to see it to believe it. And Alahado, over the last 4, 384.5 passing yards per game, and the team's averaged 39.3 points a game. San Diego State's D has not faced a passing attack anything remotely close to what Hawaii's going to throw out there on Saturday night in Honolulu. And by the way, Timmy Chang's got an outstanding record as a Honolulu dog. I think this number's inflated too much here. I think Hawaii's got a great shot to win the game and kind of expose the San Diego State defense a little bit. So Hawaii +7 for me.
Yeah, I apologize for stealing your thunder there. I should have put 2 and 2 together. But here's another thing. I love being on your side most of the time, Matt. And that's a great handicap that you have right there. And I totally agree. And I think that Hawaii has a chance to win this one outright. Did you say his name is Bucky, the running back's name?
Lucky.
Okay.
I like that name, by the way. That should be a great name for a handicapper or a gambler.
I hope so. Yeah, if your name's Lucky, you move up two positions here in the handicapping rankings in the VSIN challenge. Well, speaking of Bucky, let's do a quick hodgepodge here, and I will put Hawaii down as a podcast play. I'm going to Bucky this week, and this is kind of up your alley. And this is my team, and I've been betting against them much more than on them. I only bet on them live once and lost. I bet on them multiple times against Wisconsin, especially in the Maryland game, which was my largest bet of the year. I could not believe Wisconsin was favored against them. But I am betting on them now. I'm getting double digits, and it's a spot where Wisconsin is massively disrespected to a Washington team that has not been traveling well. This Washington team has no defense. I love their quarterback. But after seeing the spirit that Wisconsin showed a little bit against Oregon, granted, it was a rainstorm. It was a pouring down rainstorm. I kind of saw a little bit of something. Everyone thinks that Luke Fickell's toast. Everyone thinks he's going to get fired. Well, Matt, show me a book where I can bet the no on that, because I read what Chris McIntosh, athletic director, said in his note to boosters. And he said to stick with the process on this. And there's a $28 million buyout, and we don't have Adidas or anybody in Wisconsin coming to shell out that kind of money. And the fact that McIntosh wrote it and the way he wrote it tells me that Fickell is not going to get fired. And as a matter of fact, you're probably going to see Fickell next year in August in Camp Randall Stadium. And it's a tough thing for a Badger fan to think of, but that's just the truth of the matter, no matter what way we want it or not. But because of that, this team has to play. They have to show up. They know they're still auditioning for next year. And this Washington team has been absolute hot garbage, traveling 2 time zones, just like USC, just like many of the other old Pac-12 teams. This is too big of a spread in a game that's going to be cold, in a game that might be a little bit windy, and a Wisconsin defense that's finally showing some life. I'm taking the dog at double digits. Plus 11.5 is what I got.
Well, I can tell you, I've got a sheet here of all my potential plays for the week for college football. I got about 20 sides on it, and I got Wisconsin written down as a potential. I have not played it yet, but it's definitely a potential play for me too. I don't know what's going to happen with Luke Fickell, but the reason McIntosh wrote that letter, he's got 25 million reasons to write it. If
sure does.
If they had a small buyout, they would buy him out and he would be gone. But I think what McIntosh is forced to do here is say, all right, got to get in a new offensive coordinator. We're going to overhaul this whole thing. You got to do what Indiana did last year. And when it happened, I couldn't believe it. I said, how did Indiana get Fernando Mendoza? I thought that was a top quarterback on the transfer market, right up there with John Mateer, who went to Oklahoma. How did Indiana get Mendoza? Well, back in the day, Wisconsin would have got a guy like that. I don't know how that slips under the radar, and Wisconsin ends up with Danny O'Neal and the quarterbacks that Wisconsin brought in. You're not going to win with those guys. How do you let Indiana get Mendoza? So the balance of power shifted. Indiana's paying, getting a better quarterback, and Wisconsin's sitting up there getting scrap parts of quarterback, and that's why you sit at the bottom of the Big Ten standings. It's crazy, but that's the way college football is now. Give Kurt Signetti credit. I couldn't believe he pulled that off and got Fernando Mendoza. Yeah. Wisconsin's sitting around bringing in garbage quarterbacks, and not bringing in Russell Wilson anymore. That's for sure. So I thought you're right. Wisconsin, I thought, showed some fight in that game in Oregon, and I think they'll show some fight here. So maybe you'll talk me into that play because I have been considering the Badgers here.
Yeah, and you might get Billy Edwards this week. We don't know what the hell's going on there. It could be something internal. I don't know.
Even if you got, I don't want to interrupt you here, but even if you got Billy Edwards healthy, why did you go for Billy Edwards and Danny O'Neal when you could have had Fernando Mendoza?
Trust me, that is one of my frustrations. As a matter of fact, if you read my post on our fan site that I created years ago on a group, I said, why not go for a coach like Sean Lewis, who played for the Badgers, up-and-coming guy that's not expensive, still young enough offensive mind, and then buy a quarterback like a Sorsby or Bagley from James Madison. Pay for those two things and then build your next around that. Don't get expensive like Kelly or Franklin or anything like that. Forget those guys. Get the new up-and-coming guy. And I feel like what's funny about Kirk Cinetti, he's older, but he feels like he's younger the way he's kind of approaching things. And yeah, it irks me to this day. But I'm on Bucky. Another hodgepodge game. TCU's up to 7 now. I liked it when it was under that. Iowa State's they showed nothing last week. And how the hell do you get beat by Jeff Sims? The dude runs all over. That was embarrassing. I had line value on that game, too, because I knew that Levitt was out as it was moving before it was announced. That one pissed me off. I think TCU is probably a little too high at 7 now, but I did lay it when it was at a better number. We already talked about Virginia Wake. Louisville Cal. Louisville's 20.5. They were kind of my buy low team last week, and then they covered against Virginia Tech. Did they just blow out Cal here? That's an interesting one.
I don't know. I'll tell you that Jeff Brom's not a great big favorite. Louisville was lucky to cover that game against Virginia Tech. Well, I think laying 11, won by 12, 28-16.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yep.
I swore off this Cal team. Let's see. After the Duke game, the night when they were in Berkeley and Cal was up 21-7, and then Duke scored 38 straight points. And I said, that's it. I'm done with Cal. And since then, Cal has failed to cover 3 in a row, and 2 of those have been really excruciating bad beats. So I'm glad I jumped off the Golden Bears bandwagon. That seems like a really big number. I'll probably stay away from that game.
I can't believe Oregon State's laying 20.5 to a team. And it is Sam Houston. But Jesus Christ, Sam Houston. Well, that's like a sicko game right there, a sicko, right?
Sam Houston is a shit show, poorly coached team. I couldn't touch that team. Yeah,
no, I couldn't touch that. And I know we got to get to our beer bet bangers, but is there anything across the board that's any of interest here? It's West Virginia, Colorado. I'm thinking about just live betting it just to see how bad Colorado really is. But West Virginia is in a big letdown spot. And I admit I was one of the idiots on Houston last week. I had a bad week last week. I was on Houston, and the Bear was on West Virginia, and he cashed easily with that one. But That was. I've been on Mississippi State the last 5 weeks, and now they're plus 8.5 against Georgia, and I'm like, whoo, I'm like, maybe that's just a good number. It's another one that's irking me a little.
Yeah, I've been on Mississippi State a couple times as a home dog. More cowbell, right, against Arizona State and against Texas, and I got there both times. I don't want to press my luck here. And one thing I don't know, I say this not 100% seriously, but I'm concerned about the Georgia favoritism from the SEC officials in the replay booth.
You should be.
You bet against Georgia. There's a third team on the field. And the third team is definitely out there to help the Bulldogs get into the win column into the college football playoff. I think it's embarrassing what's happened. It's ridiculous what's happened in the Georgia-Auburn game and in the Georgia-Florida game, where all these significant calls are going Georgia's way. And, there should be some sort of an investigation on what's going on with this SEC officiating crew in the replay booth, because that stuff can't happen. You hear all the time about the integrity of the games and how gambling threatens the integrity of the games. Corrupt officiating threatens the integrity of the games as much as anything. And
Absolutely.
nobody who watched Georgia Auburn or Georgia Florida can say that the officiating did not dramatically favor Georgia in those games. And if you think something's amiss, I'm not going to disagree with you. Something's not on the level there. And I'm just going to stay away from the Georgia game this week. But I've played Mississippi. I have played Mississippi State as a home dog twice, and it's paid off. I'll probably avoid this game. Yeah. I mentioned to you I bet San Jose. I really like this matchup for San Jose. But again,
it was a great number.
Tuesday morning when I was on the show with Dave Ross and Jensen Lewis on that 4:30 a.m. show, I talked up to San Jose State play. And at circa at that point, it was -3, -120. And bad matchup for the Air Force defense. And since then, that number has gone from 3 to 5.5. So that's out of my price range. At 3, I still played San Jose, but now 5.5 off that game. Clemson is interesting to me. Speaking of officials, Dabo went on a rant. How about that rant he went on against college officiating?
I love it.
That was awesome.
Yeah.
And his team got completely screwed on that pass interference call. They basically handed the win to Duke.
It was a game-changing call. It was a score-changing call, a spread-changing call. It was all three in that game. I thought about betting Clemson. My friends talked me out of it and said Duke's better, but the truth is that Clemson was better, but I'm glad I didn't bet it because of that. And I've been one that has gotten criticized on Twitter for complaining. It is really nice to see a lot more voices now speak up for this shit, because I'm almost to the point where the players aren't deciding the games as nearly as much as the guys in the stripes. And this Georgia thing, you wonder, I almost feel like it's to appease the networks, and I feel like they're human and they kind of get caught into the feeling that they should do this to get their next job subconsciously. I don't know what it is, but there's a simple fix to it, Matt. You have somebody in a different state watching a screen just like us that can make a call in 5 seconds and just beam down to them and make the change. Somebody overriding this stuff. That's what I want to see in football.
You would have to have like a centralized college football commissioner's office that's not partial to any conference to make the rulings on the video. Like, the problem with the SEC is, look, there's tens of millions of dollars at stake here. And it's pretty obvious the SEC wants to get Georgia into the playoff, right? Can't afford to have Georgia losing at Auburn or Georgia losing to Florida. So if you want to say there's a bias towards Georgia from the SEC, I would agree with that. As you would have to have a neutral commissioner's office like the NFL. And believe me, the NFL's got plenty of officiating problems of its own. But I think you'd have to have a centralized office that does all the reviews so the conference can't handle it, because the conference is going to be biased towards certain teams, right? They want certain teams to get into the playoff because it means tens of millions of dollars.
Did you see Ohio State's fumble last week? The whistle wasn't blown. I mean, if he broke away and ran for the touchdown, do you think they'd be like, oh, forward motion was stopped? Hell no.
No. I've said the same thing about Ohio State in the Big Ten. Last week, Caleb Downs gets called for targeting. That was the definition of targeting. That took the Penn State receiver's head off on a direct missile strike, and then they reversed the targeting call. Well, we don't want to take Ohio State's best player off the field. There's a lot of that stuff that goes on. I think Dabo's rant was great because
it was great.
Just not enough accountability with the officiating that goes on, and there is some bias in these conferences. There's no question about it.
And in the NFL has their problems because they decide they're picking and choosing stuff to do. There's some serious issues there. And if the NFL owners were actually football guys, they're mostly oil tycoons and stuff like that, and actually had any brains, they would actually see it, but they can't even understand it because they're less of fans of their own team than most of the fans are of their team. So it's just a bad situation. I'm glad we ranted about it. I think it needs to be brought up. And thank God for big personalities like Dabo, because that's what's going to take, being able to face a fine, being not scared of it, being able to stand up. The Bears sent me a tweet today. He texted it to me on the old Ohio State quarterback talking about it, Dabo, and retweeting it, saying this is absolutely insane and it's got to stop. So I absolutely agree, and I'm glad it's being more forefront now. You wonder if there could be an investigation, but I guess I don't know. What's the government care, right? I say lack of institutional control. If you're like Enron or something and you see this crap going on, they're a publicly traded company. Well, people bet on this stuff. It's a market. There's a massive lack of institutional control here, and that's what they need to be, come down on. All right, rant over.
I was going to say we're going to go down a rabbit hole here because I'm not going to do it, but FBI, the government, cares more about poker games and NBA props and busting, grandstanding and making big busts and grandstanding. Imagine if people cared that much about corrupt politicians. Imagine.
Imagine that. We'll end it at that. But here's a beer bet banger. And I got one that is a lot similar to your World Series bet, Matt. Before Indiana went to Oregon, and I was on Indiana that game, I bet on a beer bet banger here. I forgot who the guest was. Mendoza 14-1 to win the Heisman.
Nice. Like it.
I wish it was a bigger than a beer bet banger. But anyways, 14-1. But here's the deal. I believe that Ohio State, Indiana Big Ten championship game is for the Heisman Trophy itself. And I'm going to now bet saying the only thing I can get is plus 175. But I'm actually doing that as my beer bet just so I can do the same thing as you, kick back, not have a side in that game, not have to worry about what the refs are doing to my bet. I'm just going to have either Sayin and Heisman winning, and it's going to be a bigger bet on Sayin because I have 14-1 on Mendoza. Or if Mendoza wins, I think one of these two are going to be the Heisman. So that's my beer bet banger.
Well, that's a smart hedge because, and it's a 3-horse race. Ty Simpson's got a shot too. But so I'm going with, since I've not been on with you for a while, I've talked about this. Fernando Mendoza to win the Heisman, and plus 240 is still out there at DraftKings.
Nice.
That's still a pretty good number on a guy I think should be the favorite. And who's going to win it? Right now, if you compare the numbers of the 3 quarterbacks in the race, Mendoza, Simpson, and Sayin, very comparable numbers across the board for all 3. Passing yards about the same. Touchdowns, interceptions, relatively the same. One difference is that Mendoza has 220 rushing yards and 4 touchdowns. Simpson's barely run at all, 2 rushing TDs. Sayin does not run at all. He's got no rushing TDs. Mendoza's basically got the best numbers, I think, across the board. He's got 29 total touchdowns. Simpson has 22. Sayin has 23. Mendoza is going to be playing for a 12-0 team in the Big Ten title game. Now, if the Hoosiers slip up against Penn State this weekend, we're shot on this. But again, I don't think that's going to happen. And also, I believe Kurt Cignetti is going to have Mendoza run up huge numbers against Purdue in the last game. That Purdue pass defense stinks, and I think he's going to run up some big numbers in that last game to try to help him get the Heisman, put him over the top. The Big Ten title game could be for the Heisman. But again, I think Ohio State's – well, I know Ohio State's winning more because of its defense than it is because of Julian Sayin.
I agree.
And you got 2 freshman quarterbacks here, and Ty Simpson and Sayin, and you got a veteran quarterback in Mendoza. I think Mendoza's going to get it. He's going to have a big game against Purdue to finish it, and in the Big Ten championship game, who knows? Ohio State might win that game, but it might be because of Ohio State's defense, not because of Sayin outplaying Mendoza. It's hard to say. You're in a great position there because you got an awesome number on Mendoza. But I'd still take the 240, and I have bet this, and I think he's going to win it. I think he's got the best numbers now, and I believe Mendoza is going to win the Heisman.
Well, I'm with you completely. And saying number 1 in QBR, Mendoza number 3, and that's just the QBR stat. If you look at yards and things like that, really favors Mendoza. If you look at Ty Simpson, he's only 12th down there, so it would take a dramatic finish for him to be mentioned. Gunnar Stockton kind of hanging out there, but yeah, I just like you said, I like Mendoza better. But I'm doing this as a hedge with Julian Sayin right here. So thank you for that. I forgot to mention Andrew Clark's also said SEC refs did not like Hugh Freeze. And I think that was very true when you saw a little bit of that Georgia game as well. That's awesome stuff. We always go long, Matt. Really appreciate your insights. Could you let our listeners know where they can get your wonderful information and plays?
Well, we got a lot of people at the network who are really good, worth following. VSIN.com. VSIN.com is our website. Our VSIN Live on Twitter was 24/7 TV, radio, betting network. So you can find us all over the place. YouTube TV, Sirius XM Radio. And we got to get you on to talk college football very soon.
All right. Well, I look forward to it, and always available. And Bobby, only Hugh's mama likes you. That might be true. And it also might be true for Brian Kelly. So once again, Matt, we'll be tweeting. Thanks again.
Okay, you bet. Thanks.
Now it is time for
The Sharp Side of the Force.
Sharp Side of the Force, brought to you by The Season. For the biggest sports contests in all the land, please visit www.theszn.com/OB for 20% off any packages. Terms, conditions, location apply. All right, Sharp. College football as of Wednesday, November 5th. Sharp money on Boston College, plus 13.5 to plus 10.5, hosting SMU. 78% of the tickets and 84% of the money. Sharp money UAB, plus 4.5 to plus 2.5 at Rice. 60% of the tickets, 79% of the money. Sharp money East Carolina, minus 26.5 to minus 28.5, hosting Charlotte. 55% of the tickets and 97% of the money. Sharp money Texas A&M, minus 5.5 to minus 7 at Missouri. 45% of the tickets and 64% of the money. Sharp money in San Jose State, minus 2.5 to minus 5.5, hosting Air Force. 61% of the tickets and 84% of the money. Sharp totals. Memphis versus Tulane, under 58.5 to 54.5. 58% of the tickets, 56% of the tickets, 66% of the money. James Madison versus Marshall, over 52.5 to 55.5. 33% of the tickets, 65% of the money. Charlotte versus East Carolina, over 53.5 to 56.5. 28% of the tickets and 69% of the money. A little typo there. LSU versus Alabama, under 54.5 to 49.5, 77% tickets, 77% of the money, some buyback there. Kent State versus Ball State, over 46 to 48, 70% of the tickets and 87% of the money. All right, my friends, to recap our bets. Oregon, we actually gave out on Monday. I forgot about that, minus 5.5, so we gave that Monday. But Arizona, minus 4.5. LSU, plus 10. Hawaii plus 11.5 and Wisconsin plus 11.5. Those are the plays. Obviously, Matt had a bunch of plays himself, some really great ones that I will be on as well. My friends, thank you so much for listening to this podcast. If you have any questions for us, feel free to tweet us at The Oddsbreakers. Email us at info@theoddsbreakers.com. See you tomorrow for some NFL, and go get some winners.
If you like the show, please take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe. It really does help the show to grow. Thank you for listening.